Welcome back, everyone, to the Magnus Effect, the podcast where we talk to young builders to understand how they navigate ambition, risk, and personal growth in college. As you can see today, I have changed up the background a little bit. I rearranged my room and I thought this was much more of a influencer type of feeling, more of a professional look. I wanted to try this out, so let me know what you think about it in the comments below. But today I sit down with Dawson, an entrepreneur, creative thinker, and someone who refuses to settle for surface level conversations. Dawson is all about building, experimenting, and finding ways to turn his ideas into reality. He's currently launching Fuck the Small Talk, a card game designed to break through small talk and spark meaningful conversations. And he's deeply invested in understanding what it takes to build a fulfilling and sustainable creative life. In this episode, we dive into Dawson's entrepreneurial mindset, his journey into startups, and the challenges of balancing creativity with financial stability. We explore topics like the importance of taking risks while young, learning from failures, and his philosophy on grinding with intention. Plus, we talk about his work with Project Reboot, where he's tackling our generation's relationship with technology and social media. Dawson really brings this raw energy with deep insights and a fresh perspective of what it means to create something meaningful in today's world. So get ready with a conversation filled with real talk, bold ideas, and plenty of inspiration. As always, I really enjoyed how this conversation turned out, and I hope you do as well. Without further ado, please welcome Dawson. How would you define your identity these days, and why do you think it's so important?
I think it changes a lot, and it's important for it to change. So acknowledging that my identity is frequently changing. The way I would define it now is I think I'm acknowledging myself as someone that's more creative and likes to create things. Maybe it looks like it's manifesting in the way of being an entrepreneur. But I would say I'm a curious person that wants to constantly be creating, and the thing I'm trying to navigate right now is how can I live a life where I'm flexing my creative muscle but then also monetizing it, where I have a stable cushion, because it's I think you can get rich quick or whatever, go into finance, be an investment banker. I mean, to me that seems like a bit of a rat race, and I want to be able to I think regardless of how much money I have, I'm always going to want to flex that creative muscle. And if I'm thinking about long-term happiness, it's how can I create a life where I am creating consistently and frequently? So,
and it's hard too, because I will be doing this podcast, or I'll be creating short form clips. I'll be I'm not trying my very hardest. I'm not posting every single day, but yeah, it's so hard. Well, I'm surprised that you're going straight into monetization. You started talking about monetization, right? And I'm like, wow, that's it's so admiring for you to shoot for that, because while I'm doing this, it's I can't help but fall back onto a corporate career as a safety net, you know?
Yeah.
It's I also love having that creative muscle and showing people that I'm full of these ideas, but it's also so hard to stand out these days. So how do you imagine doing that?
I think the safety net that I'm taking right now is that I'm in college. So you can take, I have 2.5 years left where I have a safety net where I can take as many risks as I want and not have to be financially compensated for them. But I would like to get to the point where when I'm graduating, I have some sort of creative project that I've done that allows me to have some sort of money in it. And I think the way you go about that is effort. I think we apply a lot of success to luck and randomness, but the more I talk to successful people, the more I realize that they grinded for 5 to 10 years, or at least were working day in and day out to create the future that they want to create. I think you have to be intentional and disciplined. I really the more I talk to people, the more I realize the people that are saying it's luck, I mean, yes, there's luck involved, but if you try hard enough, I think you could get to the position where you're living your ideal life.
And you're prepared to go through what they say the season of despair to reach that point. Who is it that when you say successful people, what who are these people? Are they people in the creative space, people that you just deem to have like a really high level of skill in their respective industry?
They tend to be entrepreneurs. I think it definitely like depends on the individual. And some of these people I talk to directly, some of them are podcasters that I listen to. It seems that a common theme, and like other people that I just get mentorship, multimillionaires, whatever, they have success. They have the like financial success, whatever like we deem as like a successful person. They are always like, yeah, there was a period of time where I was working really fucking hard, and that's an important thing to acknowledge. I don't think it has to be a state of despair though. I think you can get to the point where you're so in love with the process that like it's almost addictive. Like you use that addictive tendency to like push you forward. I mean, at some point in your life, you're going to have to suffer. And from my perspective, and it's either, are you going to like fuck off for like 10 years and then work a job that you don't want to work, or like grind for like 5 to 10 years. And I don't even think it's that black and white, but at least like be intentional and like plant seeds now that will grow to make you have a more comfortable life later. Like I'm not promoting that everyone has to grind like every day. I just think from like the type of ambitions I have and things that I want to pursue, there will be a point where I am like working very tirelessly for a long period of time. And creating solutions that I want to see like flourish in the world. And I think doing that younger is important, because then you can like benefit from it later and these seeds will be planted.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, a part of me is kind of thinking back to my high school days, like, man, I really wish I worked as hard so I'd build that work ethic and like be similar to like these Bay Area kids, you know, who just can go at it tirelessly. But I find a lot of what you're saying, like, it sounds like some of the podcasts I listen to, you know, with all these great people. And it's been a question in my mind that I want to get your input on this. But they say that they work tirelessly and hard. But do you think they were suffering during that period? Or why do you think they call it hard work now? When in reality, in my head, I'm thinking like they were just in love with what they were doing. So why is it that they're now saying that it's hard work? Do you think there's a period where it is passion and there's a little bit of like that 20% where it is hard work, and that's why you say you did so much hard work? If you kind of know where I'm going at with this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're building, and like I think it depends on each founder. What I mean by hard work is a disciplined effort where that is consuming most of your time. This hard work could be enjoyable, it could be your passion, it could be everything, but there are a lot of times where there is monotonous, tedious work that you just have to do. Like whether that's like setting up logistics systems. I mean, it depends on your product and like how you go about things, but you can't just have this, like you can have a vision, you can have the creative like side of it that you really love, but then there are other like logistical things that you have to get done. I mean, note taking, like I don't know, grinding in some capacity. I would assume that would have to happen, and this is still something that I want to learn from. But I feel like I'm prepared to have to do that to some extent. I would be willing to with the right project.
So I'm getting a lot of themes, and I've also looked at your LinkedIn profile about like loving entrepreneurship and business and startups. Like, where did that originally come from? Talk to me about your progression to this business world. I know from what you just said right now, like you said, you have 2.5 years left, so you're a sophomore right now, right? Yeah. So were you always like this from the beginning of college? How'd you kind of stumble into this?
So when I was 12, I was walking and I was like, I want to be president of the United States. And that was something that, you know, whether I want to do that now or not, I have no idea. But I think I've always had this mindset of like, I see a lot of our systems are like deeply flawed, and it makes me angry. And I want to figure out how I can use my skill set to like most effectively change these systems. And the way that I've navigated that in this stage of my life, especially going into college, I would say like spring of my freshman year, so around a year ago, has been entrepreneurship. I think you can make way more effective change by creating your own solutions than like through government. I think it just is bureaucratic and slow, and I think there are people that have the skill sets to manage that. I don't think that's where my skill set is right now. I think later in life I would love to like run for a higher office once I've explored other things. But given my current skill set and my location, Berkeley, and the people that I'm surrounding myself with, I see more and more entrepreneurs that are solving problems that I want to solve. And I think that like that is a more effective way to change the world as a young person that doesn't have a lot of capital, that is willing to put in some sweat to create something. And so like that's kind of how I'm approaching it. When I see like, for example, I'm working with this it's like a tech intentional startup. We like talk to people about how to like get over their tech addictions or just build a healthier relationship with technology. It's called Project Reboot. I see this entrepreneur, the guy who like started it, his name's Dino. And he's creating so much effective change, speaking at schools, creating curriculums, creating a club network at colleges and high schools. It's like you can do so much of that as an entrepreneur, as opposed to like a politician that is lobbying for like some way that a social media company could be regulated. I think both things need to happen simultaneously, but this like bottom up approach is like something you can do more immediately, and could create wider spread change quicker. I mean, both things need to happen to solve these problems, but I'm really inspired by these entrepreneurs that are taking it into their own hands, and I want to be one of them.
You want to be one of them. So that's when you got involved with Project Reboot?
I got involved in like high school, but it just like that was a seed that planted, and then I was like, wait, I should probably be doing stuff like this as well.
What are examples of like other startups that you really look up to, or like chain or initiatives / businesses that you really
there's a cool one called, they used to be called Starts With Us, and now they're called Builders. They do street interviews on like getting rid of political polarization. I think that's like a cool creative way to go about these things. Other stuff off the top of my head, I mean, I think there are other like student organizations where people are just like maybe not creating the same type of change that I want to make, but like they are changing some sort of industry. I'm working with these guys who are perfecting like urban mobility, urban mobilization, urban development. It's like, oh, you created this program that's helping cities track street parking and navigation and making them more efficient. Where like, again, if you're comparing this to like government, it's like it's pretty slow. So it's cool. You see all these innovators and you're like, whoa, these people's minds are thinking out of the box and they're creative. They're making all of these solutions. It's like, why not try to be one of those people? I just think it's super important.
So how are you building up towards that right now? Like, what are your current skill sets, and like, how are you kind of navigating what you need to know next?
I honestly, like, it's hard because it's like, I hate corporate stuff. Like I hate consulting clubs. Like, and I think it works for some people. To me, it just feels like I'm checking another box like I was in high school, like joining an extracurricular to like get into a good college. And it's like, I'm tired of doing that. So like, and with that, there are drawbacks, because it's like now I don't necessarily have like certain fine skills in like finance, or like understand what like a VC fund is or whatever, like, or a venture capital. Yeah, whatever. I don't know what a lot of these things are. Like I just probably mispronounced like how to say these things, whatever. So YouTube, talking to people that are mentoring me. And I guess it's important to contextualize, like I'm making a card game. It's called Fuck the Small Talk. I started making this game 2 years ago when I went into college, and I felt like I was having a lot of surface level conversations. And it was like, what's your name? What's your major? Where are you from?
The
it's
classics,
like,
right?
anyone could do it. It's like,
How's your break?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we all have the capacity to connect with each other on a deep level, and we also have the desire to do so. Sometimes we just need a toolkit to go about that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just generate this list of questions so I can connect with people better. Then I was like, oh, I should make this a card game. Then like around 3 months ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like just something like lit up inside me. And I was like, I'm going to do it now. I'm tired of like, because there was a period where I was just deeply frustrated by not making anything happen. I saw these entrepreneurs around me and I was like, I want to be like them. And I was like, I just am not capable of it. But it's like, no, you just start and you try, and you don't have any skills, but you watch a YouTube video and you figure it out, or you find someone that's done something that you want to do and you reach out and you have a conversation with them. So that kickstarted this and like led me to like be launching the game on Thursday for sale. So
for sale. Wow.
Yeah.
You made it all the way down there already.
Yeah, it was quick. I mean, I had a lot of mentorship, and like I cold emailed people that were doing things that were like making card games. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Exploding Kittens, but it was the most funded Kickstarter of all time. They made a card game. I emailed the founder and he was like, you can meet with my head of marketing
No
and she
way,
can give you
really?
advice. So it's like all of these people, like, I don't know, reach out to people that are like, I think the biggest thing is reach out to people that are doing the stuff that you want to be doing, and like you will gain more insight than you'd expect. And like that's led me to like understand how to make this process as quickly as possible.
I really love your character, Dawson. Like what you said right there reminds me of that one quote that you might have heard this before, but it's like change happens or greatness happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of taking the risk. And that's exactly what you did. And it seems like you weren't shy at all when it came to finding the people and finding exactly what you needed for this card game. So if you're comfortable with it, can we break down like how you started with like designing and like publishing?
I'll show it. We have it here. So like, I don't know. It's like, don't know if you form with it. It was in the rain, so it's a bit like messed up. I don't know if you see the watermarks on the side, but I don't think
it shows up, but
I bring it to every party.
That's so neat. Look at that. But yeah, it's just like it's so simple. Like fuck the small talk.
Yeah, and this is a prototype. So the final version looks better. It's easier to like grab the cards. It's a bit more compact and like higher up. But yeah, this is like a good form of reference. So sorry, what was your initial question?
So I wanted to, if someone wanted to also build like a card game, just speaking out to the public right now, like how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, one, if you can reach out to someone that's made one. I mean, again, I'll give you feedback, but like it's really important to like have a direct like guide. What did I do first? I reached out to someone that made a card game. He gave me advice. He was like, okay, what's your product? Understand like what you're creating and why you're creating it. See if other people have done it. If they have done it, like people have made conversation card games before. I mean, this is the best one, but the thing that's more important is like the marketing behind it. So like what crowd are you fitting into? The crowd that I'm fitting into is college students, young people that are frustrated that a lot of our connections have been superficial, and we try to connect with people by scrolling on our phones, snapping each other pictures of our faces, swiping on dating apps. It's not sustainable, and it's a false sense of connection. So I wanted to create the toolkit for deeper connection, and also applying the philosophy of like, I think our generation is very afraid of discomfort, and that is because we've had so many numbing agents that allow us to avoid discomfort. If you feel bored, you can scroll. If you feel anxious, you can scroll. This is perpetuating a cycle that isn't allowing anyone to grow. And that's why I think we need to apply the same mindset of like, I lift weights and it's uncomfortable and that causes me to get stronger physically, or I grind in the library and that causes me to do well on my tests, to our relationships. There is a required amount of vulnerability that will lead to you growing and having more sustainable relationships. And I think that fuck the small talk can break some of that ice. And that's what I tried to create. I mean, that's what I created. After 2 years, like really like curating on these questions and like making sure that they were like allowing for vulnerability, and the way that you play the game facilitates connection. I've seen people connect in like very deeply, quickly. Strangers, friends, family members, like things that I didn't even know about people that have been in my life since the beginning of it. It's like, wow, we've been going about our lives in crazy ways. I know that wasn't like an answer to your question about like creating board games, but I can answer that later.
Well, I think what you said was much more valuable, because it shows me like what you went through and what kind of the process and like what the main inspiration was that like drove you to do this for 2 years, because most people, like I myself, I tried, I quote unquote tried, like for a bit of my life, I wanted to build a supplement company, and part of that was finding a supplier and then finding a packaging for it. And after about 5 days, I was like, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. It's going to take a lot of like advertising. I don't want to do that. Build an LLC too, yada, yada. But the fact that you showed me how much passion, I could tell by your words and like the energy you just provided for me. It's like, wow, you really cared about this topic. So in terms of like making the questions, how did you kind of select them? Because it must be really hard. This reminds me a lot of the really famous study, 20 questions to fall in love, right?
Yeah.
You probably took a lot of inspiration for that, or not really?
I was familiar with it. It wasn't like I don't know the questions. Like I have an understanding. There's like products like We're Not Really Strangers, other conversation card decks. Like I think that's probably the most popular one. I guess the philosophy I had going in was, I think the questions that we ask people allow us to like unlock them. So like if everyone has this potential where like I can discover really beautiful things about you, I need to ask the right questions in order to get those answers. So I was kind of applying that with like everyone I was meeting in college. I did it at home as well. And I just kind of started making this list. I mean, I think the first question I have was like, what was your greatest addiction? And that one's still in the game. And then like, as we were talking about addiction, someone like brought up that they got really anxious from their addiction. So it's like, okay, how has your relationship with like your mental health changed over time? Or like, how has your relationship with your phone weighing you down? So it's like these different insights and conversations. I almost got the like understanding from someone, and then I worked backwards to be like, what would be a question that would like reproduce this answer within other people? But then I would just like brainstorm. I mean, like it was a constant thought on my mind for like a year and a half. I was always thinking about questions, revising the list, testing it with people. So I guess it's like I was working hard at it. It's like that was hard work, but it was like exciting and fun. And I think I found a good balance where it didn't feel like I was working, and I was like, I mean, I was just like connecting with people and testing this product.
And what I like about conversational cards is like, whenever it comes to networking, or how the tech people would call it, or business people, or like getting to know people, I feel like our egos tend to get in the way a lot. So sometimes when we don't have a very comfortable conversation, we don't connect with someone immediately, we like to immediately categorize them as so like someone who's not going for anything, like it doesn't seem like they have much anything interesting. So I really love the point on what you just said of like this, there's a story behind everyone, essentially. And I was curious if you ever went through that when you were having conversations with people, if you're just super open-minded and everyone's like everyone has a story to you, like how do you kind of break past that, like, oh, I know that the only people I want to listen to are like people who have something going for them, who is super entertaining, who had that like passion or hobby. How do I sit down and listen to people that I may not immediately love?
It's a good question. You begin to realize that everyone has that quality. We're just not right at asking the right questions. I truly believe like anyone can become super like enlightening or entertaining if you're asking them the right questions. So I think that was a big part of the philosophy when I was like, because it's like anyone became a valuable resource because I would like for anyone to play this game. So if I'm not interested in someone, then I'm not asking the right questions, or I'm not going in with the right type of curiosity. I don't think there was like a specific like type of person that like helped me more than someone else. I mean, maybe someone that I found less interesting initially was more helpful because I had to work harder and create different questions. But I also think it's like the setting and intention you like have them in. Like if you're playing in a bigger group, it's like way harder to understand people. Like we need to think more about like connecting with people, not just like who they are as an individual, but the setting in which you're connecting with them. Because like when you think about it, like you're at a party, super loud, you're in a conversation with like 5 people. It's like, no wonder I think you're boring. I'm not actually able to connect with you. Like you need to like unless you're like extremely extroverted and charismatic, then people can connect to you and they can be interested in you, but you're not going to have these deep understandings unless you're like sitting down with someone, or at least in a conversation one-on-one. And that could be in a party setting, but I really, really think it's important to like have intention with like the space in which you're connecting with people too. It's not just the individual.
Going back to like kind of why you started this, like I think we share a similar front on that end. Like I started this podcast because I thought there was too many college podcasts that were just all about like dating and hookups, because that's what most college students are into, right? So it's I felt like there was like a really lack of like connecting with ambitious students who are working on cool things. It's always just these like uh outliers that are like 21, built this startup, raised $50 million, but you never get something in between of like the people who are on their journey who might be big like 20 years down the line.
Yeah, trying to create.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why your mission, your motivation towards creating this is so interesting to me. And what does it say on the side of the box right there?
So there's a lot of things on the side. Before I say that, there's something I'd like to comment on. I think it's cool that you're not just interviewing like people that are already successes, like someone like me that's ambitious and like going for it. Like I acknowledge right now, like I think about myself talking on this podcast and I'm like, I fucking hate how I'm sounding. Like I'm not as articulate as I could be. Like I
really think so.
Yeah, because I just know I can be better. And I think that in like a lot of ways, but it's not going to prevent me from doing this because I'm only going to become better by like continuing to put myself in these situations. Like I'm going to look back at it and think of like a million things that I could have done better. I could have like articulated or like phrased or whatever. I'm all over the place, but I like think it's important to pursue this perfection to its fullest extent and acknowledge that like it's going to have me like failing or like being cringy or like not like saying things that I like am articulating as well. So it's like it's the process, and I think that's a cool thing that you're documenting people that are in the process of becoming whatever they can become or failing and not becoming these successes. But I think it's just something to comment on that I admire, and I think it's a cool niche, and I really hope you like continue to stick with this for like years and years and years, because eventually it will grow into something, if you're intentional about how you adapt and always reflecting on like how I could become a better like podcaster. But that's nor here nor there. I mean, yeah, something I just wanted to comment on and remind it on.
You're too kind. Thank you.
The thing that this says on the side, there's two things, and they're hard to read in this version, so that's like also part of why I like made a different prototype. So it's like a little bigger, but it says, one side says, when the world wants us to be divided, we fight back by being open, honest, and vulnerable. Take on the challenge and question the status quo. You will see we are more similar than they make us believe. Find truth in the desire to be comfortably vulnerable. This box is your toolkit. So like this kind of goes into like the ethos of it, but also like potential marketing. So like I have this like, I don't know, it's really hard to see, and that's how I'm like, that's how I can tell how like shitty this prototype is. So like it probably won't even focus, but like that's why you make it bigger so people read it. You could do a whole marketing campaign on like people making their own style, like words like this, like things that they want to say to society. And I just like, I like that being like a trademark of the box. Like most boxes say like details about the game. I mean, can I like use this one
take
here?
the hot seat, and then I also have funny enough, I have exploding kittens back here.
Oh, perfect.
So we could take a look at this since you took inspiration from it, right?
So yeah, I guess it just has like basic things about like the game, like ratings, like I don't know, there's stuff you have to legally have, like I have to have the age number, the amount of players, and like where it's manufactured.
Oh, really?
But other than that, like all of this is just kind of like them going with the status quo. So I was like, okay, I really only want to do things that have purpose and meaning and like create some sort of social movement with this game. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna like write things on each box. So like when I come out with different versions of the game, whether it's like a romance version or like an athlete expansion, whatever, there'll be different ones pertaining to that subject. And I just think it's important to like carry a message with it, and it's unique with the branding. It makes me feel better that like some people will read this and be like, you know what, you're right. Like the other one, I'm maybe like more, but it's on the other side. It says, as humans, we search for connection through scrolling, snapping, and consuming. It has become a responsibility to resuscitate the dying culture of truly knowing one another. Put down your fucking phone, find a human, and pull a card. True connection happens in the here and the now. So like things like that. I mean, I guess sometimes they have like little quotes like that, but I don't know. I just like my branding more. And
yeah, that's so much more stronger, man. Like yeah. Even if I say that in my own voice, it's like a big call out to me. You know, it's like when you had that one reel or TikTok that just like it's too close to home. It hits way too close to home, and that's what I love about that message. But in terms of your launch, what does that kind of look like for you? Because I know you probably aren't someone who's doing all this just for like the money or whatnot, but you also probably don't want to lose the money, right?
No, I want to get as much money as possible in this initial launch, because then I can grow the business bigger. I mean, I have like broader visions for this, like not just being a card game, and I would like as many people to have it as possible. So the marketing is important, and like obviously I do care about money too. Like I need to find a way to be stable so I can continue to pursue things like this and not take like a random finance job that I hate. if I could get that. I don't even have the skills, but I don't know. I have the confidence that I could probably figure it out. Whatever. Beside the point. So the way I'm approaching the launch, we're doing Kickstarter. And the way that that's going is I made an Instagram like video with this guy, Gabe Jett, who is like a really talented Berkeley student, who makes like good cinematographer, great editor. We made a commercial campaign video I'll be posting on Instagram. And then I built out an ambassador network with my friends from home. So there's 30 of them, 26 different schools like represented. They're all like talking about it on their campuses. They'll all repost it on their stories. They'll get their friends to repost it. That'll link to the Kickstarter, which I think is pretty high quality relative to other Kickstarters and given my budget. And then that's the thing. So using my existing network and then my friends' network from school to boost the Kickstarter within the first 3 days, where you get on like the For You page of Kickstarter and then the algorithm helps you. So like, as opposed to like, that was my debate. It was like, do I do Kickstarter or do I just do like a regular like Shopify account? And it's like, I'm going to use the Kickstarter community to like help me like expand it to more people given my existing audience. So that's kind of my mindset for launching. But then once I get money from it, like all the profits are going into like building out a social media team, buying more product, beginning to host events on college campuses where like you have like a lot of sororities do like bonding events. It's like, okay, this could be part of your bonding event. My friend like is connected with a winery. She was like, we can do an event at my winery with the game. So just like, I love like hosting events, and then it also like coexists with the marketing, and you see real time people connecting with each other, which is satisfying. So yeah, I'm reinvesting all the money, and I do care about that because I want it to grow as big as possible. I mean, I want to compete with Cards Against Humanity and Exploding Kittens. I want to be in Target and Walmart. So there's no lack of like ambition or vision. There just might be a little bit lack of like skills and understanding to get me to that point. But I've developed a philosophy that I can figure it out. And I think using a combination of ChatGPT and YouTube, you can pretty much figure out anything. So yeah. It's
AI.
I'm not that worried. Yeah. Yeah. It's huge. I mean, everyone should be using it for everything. Maybe not school in certain circumstances, but like if you're an entrepreneur, like put everything in.
I think this is the first use case I've heard in real life of like someone launching like a physical product, like with you probably didn't use a lot of AI since you said 2 years ago, but like the point you brought up of like how it has been helping you, I think is really cool. Because I just listened to a podcast the other day with My First Million, and it was a conversation between this really big tech CEO and the two hosts, and they were chatting about all the different AI products and like how they're kind of using it to automate things that you wouldn't think that they could automate. But one of those things were like they were expecting how software companies were going to earn less and less money because it's going to be so much easier for the regular Joe to use a software right now called Replit, where it's so easy to kind of ship and like create a product without any code. And all you would have to do is essentially just like present that to your target demographic, and boom, you got a good profit right there. So the fact that you're using it for a physical product, I think is super cool. But in terms of how other card companies did it, I love the way that you talked to me about your mindset, because usually the biggest problem or biggest mistake most people would do in this situation would probably be order like 8,000 units, right? And then suddenly you're stuck with 8,000 units. Nobody wants the card game, and you're done. Yeah. So the way you're doing it, I find is interesting, because I am fascinated by different launch strategies. There's so many different creative ways that people have done it. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but I want to get your thoughts on this. But some people would essentially create a ton of like organic, real content, short form content promoting the product, and on their page they would link to a website. I know you mentioned Shopify, and then make it a wait list. And that would kind of like test the demand of the product, and you would post it anywhere that you would see college students, maybe Reddit, maybe YouTube, maybe on campus, et cetera, et cetera. Have you ever thought about that? Did you think Kickstarter was more of like a stable approach? Just your 2 cents on that.
Yeah, Kickstarter is a good initial. So it's like, I can understand the demand, and then it gives me 30 days to like meet that demand with the money. So like the way Kickstarter works, like I have to raise $5,000 or else no one gets their cards. So it's like I won't. Yeah, so I won't get debt. So that means I need to sell 250 games. So I'm selling them for $25 each. I think that math is right. I hope it is. If not, then I have to sell like 200 games or whatever. 200 games would get me $5,000. Yes, 200 times 25. Okay. Anywho, see again, these skills that are like hard technical skills, like I don't have them as much. Whatever. I think that is a great tactic, but it can happen later. So I'm building out a social media team. Again, we've already done street interviews, so I have like people holding the cards and then answering them. So we have a content strategy, but given the like logistics of it, like once I have the Kickstarter launch, and let's say I sell those 200 games, which would be like an early goal. My goal is 1,000 for this launch, but if I sell 200, $5,000, that'll probably, I would be able to buy with that amount around 1,000 games. So I'd get 200 and then I have 800 just like roaming around, and then I could just like make content and have people buy it and directly ship it to them. I mean, I'm not losing any money. I would not go under. So yeah, I think media is the way. I think guerrilla marketing, throwing shit at the wall. I'm making any kind of content, especially because like the branding with this, like it already says fuck. So it's like the brand, like it would be harder to tarnish the brand with making like out of nowhere content. Like it's a cool business because it's like I have the freedom to kind of make like different types of wacky content that just get eyes on it, as opposed to like a more like prestigious like put together brand. And I'd love to create ones like that later, but for this, you have to understand your market, you have to understand the branding, and then try things and then see what works based on the algorithm. So
do you think your high school self would have wanted this also?
Yeah, definitely. I just don't think I had the understanding of like how to go about it. I think for a lot of my life I felt stuck, and I didn't know why really I was feeling stuck or how to become unstuck. And I guess the thing that I've learned is like, not that it's all bullshit, but that like a lot of people don't really know what's going on. There's some Steve Jobs quote that kind of talks about it. It's like the world was like changed by people that aren't much smarter than you. It's something like that he said. And I was like, you know, you're probably right. Like, I really think that if you like devote some time to something, like you can figure out how to like make this work. Like I didn't know how to make a card game, and I like 4 months ago, and now I made it and I'm launching, and maybe it'll be a success, maybe I won't, but I don't feel stuck anymore. That's the thing. The mental clarity is like, it's deeply important, and it's like therapeutic. I am okay. I've acknowledged the fact that I may fail from a like outside sense, but like internally I don't feel like I have, because I've gotten rid of this like self-doubt and like stuckness. I mean, it opened my world.
That momentum is also super contagious, isn't it? It's like you're stuck in your head, you don't do it, you just beat yourself down for it. Once you finally do it, you feel so good, isn't it?
It's crazy. It feels fucking fantastic.
The fact that you're able to hold this in your hand, it probably felt so good to you.
Satisfying. I mean, think about like cavemen would make like tools. Like we have a creative process like ingrained in us, and it's like this is kind of how it's manifested, and it's really satisfying to have something in your mind go out and be created, and then maybe be able to make money from it, whatever. I think we all need that, and like I think really good entrepreneurs are able to like harness that and like have a good muscle of being like, okay, this is in my head, and now I've like made it a reality as best as I possibly could. I mean, sure, the vision in my head is like probably still a little different than this, but it's like, I mean, this is how I was able to translate it given our systems and like the way that we manufacture things. So yeah, I think it's like a very satisfying and like almost like necessary process as like human beings to be able to create things in this way.
Right. So the reason why I call back to the question I asked, like, would your high school self want this? It's kind of an indirect way of like going into it, but you probably know this book. It's really famous book. I forgot what the author's name was, but Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? It's the first time that a book author put a swear word on the cover, and it exploded, and now you see a bunch of these books on the Barnes and Noble shelves with swear words on it. So do you think with the swear word on your box, do you think it hurts your brand more, or do you think it benefits you more?
I guess we'll see. I don't know if I have that foresight. I think it, like, if it is bad, then I'll just make a new name and I'll rebrand it. But I think that you can, like, given that that is what it is, I can lean into it a bit more and like play into like a younger audience, a more of a, like, it becomes more of a movement to me when I think about it. Fuck is a strong word. It's going against a norm. I think you can, like, almost, instead of like thinking of it as like creating a card game, thinking of it as like creating a social movement. So we're people that are going against the grain. The people that own Fuck the Small Talk and play it are the type that are like tired of these superficial connections and like these systems manipulating us, and we're gonna like actually just connect with each other in a real way. So I think it can help or hurt me. I think it will veer away, and has, like, when I street interviewed people, there was like these Russian girls that were like, I don't like that word. Like, culturally, like, fuck is like scarier for some cultures and they really hate it. So it will turn away some people, but then it's also an opportunity to lean into strengthening an audience. And I think that's something I'm conscious of.
It's crazy to me still that like you have 30 days to do this. So do you just have like a backlog of content that you're gonna rapid fire machine gun out into the world, or
I should. I'm trying to build it. So yes, I have like 3 videos right now, and that's fine. That'll give me 3 days to make other content. I think it's more in person though. Like, given how algorithms are, like, yes, I have 30 days to do this, but it doesn't, it's not as like urgent as it would. Like, it's not that urgent because I can just sell it after. Like, after those 30 days, then I'll just make a Shopify and I'll link the social medias to the Shopify instead of the Kickstarter. So it's good in terms of the algorithm, but the most important part of a Kickstarter algorithm is the first 24 hours. It kind of makes or breaks it. And once you dip down, it's hard to get back up. So the main focus is like pre-launch with the ambassador network, talking to people about it in my existing community, and just using that to like boost the Kickstarter algorithm. After that, build out like a really like good system for producing content consistently is like kind of the mindset that I've had. So it's not as urgent as like the 30 days, but it's still something that I'm intentional about and prioritizing now that all the logistics are out of the way.
Is that a skill set that you would say you're lacking, or do you think that's something that you're strong in right now in terms of content?
A bit of both. I mean, it's hard because a lot of the content is from strangers. So it's like, I can only do so much. I can have a conversation with the person before, make them comfortable with being vulnerable. But like, I really think it's one of those things that like is about like effort and consistency. Like, 1 in 5 people are willing to do the interview in the first place. And then out of those like interviews, maybe one of those is like good. So I'm interacting with like 25 people to get one good piece of content. With that being said, you can capitalize on it a bit more. Like, you can tell when someone's captivating when you're interviewing them. So maybe you ask them another question, then that's like 2 reels as opposed to 1 with one person, or like you have them expand on it, or like when they answer the question, you like kind of like egg them on a bit more and like be like, can you expand on this? And then you can edit it well to make that good, like to make that like response seem more like powerful. And then also you can edit videos to make the algorithm like them more. Like, the first 3 seconds of a short form video is like hugely important in terms of grabbing the viewer's attention. So there are little things that you can do to optimize it, but then it's also like sheer just like going out and talking to people. So I think I have a good education. I don't know if I have time. I mean, that's the big thing.
I love the intentionality behind everything that you do. Like, just hearing the way you say like, oh yeah, when I did this, I learned this. It's like you always find that one lesson. I admire that a lot. But that last point that you said, yes, that's exactly where I was kind of going with it. Like, okay, so you're a college student at Berkeley. You know, this university isn't that easy. I feel like, from my perspective, so much of the schoolwork gets in the way of my creative work and being able to do the things I really want to do. How do you balance that school life with building this project?
Yeah, so I was really intentional about making the school life not that big of a deal. I'm very luckily I got lucky because the stuff I'm interested in, my major is interdisciplinary studies. So I'm not one of these STEM majors that like I wouldn't be able to do this if I was a STEM major. I mean, the work would be backbreaking and I would like not have time. But with ISF, I can choose my own classes. So I can go and rate my professor, see which classes are like not requiring a lot of work, but I also am interested in and will be engaged with. So I found that balance where like I'm going to get my degree, but I'm not super like fixated on like what that degree is. I'm just here to learn. And a lot of that learning is coming from like creating my own business, talking to people that are curious and inspirational, and then like having good relationships with my professors. I don't feel like the rigor of a class like always equates to like how much you learn. Maybe it equates to like how good your like application will be to a hedge fund, but like I don't know, it's just not a system I want to get caught in. I'm just frustrated with like, I felt like in high school I was doing a lot of things to check the box to get into college, and I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm gonna do things that like have like actual intrinsic value and like give me passion. I'm tired of it, because you just have to get to a point where you cut that off, and this is the time.
Has doubt ever creeped into you?
Not really. I mean, no. The type of doubt that has creeped in is like, will I have enough time? Like it's all about time. I feel pretty like competent and that I'll figure things out, and like that could be a blind spot I have, but it works because I'm like motivated and like going for these things. No, not really. I believe that I can pivot. I am afraid that I won't have enough time to balance everything, and that's where it's like I say yes to like pretty much like a lot of opportunities that I get, and I think I need to do a better job at saying no. But I don't doubt that these things will either be successes or I'll learn from them, and then I'll be better at creating successes later. Yeah, not a lot of doubt. I mean, and that's, yeah, that could be ego. It's something, but I'm not letting that stop me.
And I love that, because for me, it's like I used to have 2 majors, then I dropped down to 1, and then now I'm considering not having any at all. But there's always that little voice in my head of thinking like, okay, if I were to switch my major into something like a stereotypically easy major, you know, like what would I ever regret like not having that focused study, you know? Like, okay, let's say, yeah, screw the degree, nothing matters. But I also am not taking the classes that are really beneficial, you know? Like some people rave about how much something like 61A, CS 61A is how helpful it is at college, but it's also notoriously difficult. Yeah. So it's like, okay, am I missing out on that experience? You know, am I missing out on that knowledge I could get, that I could apply some part of my life? So that FOMO is what gets to me personally. But
that's fair. I think that's honestly like, I think that's a fair thing to be afraid of. Like these classes are expansive and apply to a lot of people. They don't necessarily apply with my interests, so that's why I'm not going with them. But like for you, like that class does help a lot of people, and it's like, okay, that's the sacrifice you have to make. So I guess like going back to the doubt question, I guess I do have doubts where I'm like, could I be more efficient? Like, is there a way that I could be more efficient? And like, what things am I cutting out that like maybe I do need to have a good understanding of like data science or like econ a bit better to like be more efficient in whatever I'm pursuing. But I think we spend too much time doubting these things. And like, if you've already been like, okay, like what good knowledge do I need to understand from this class? Like, is there a way that I could like find it more efficiently, like outside of the classroom, or is like AI probably going to replace it? Or like, what understandings am I missing that like I can take into my own hands and then still have time for these other projects? So I always think you can pivot, look into your doubts and be like, okay, how can I like, if I can't take this class, like, okay, maybe I can figure out some other way to pivot and like, you know, fulfill that learning in a better way, or like maybe I need to befriend people that have taken this class and they can teach me or be my partners or whatever it looks like. So. And
you said this mentality was 2 years ago when you were just fed up with everything. Or
yeah,
would you say
like,
it's deeper into like the way you were raised?
Well, the philosophy is like kind of what I touched on earlier. Like, how can I create the most effective, like how can I be the most effective in solving the world's problems given my skill set and like how I go about my life? And I think that that's just how I've navigated like this phase of it. I think I also did that in high school a little bit. But yeah, I have a willingness and comfortability in adapting, and I think I'm pretty resistant to like a fear of failure. And I think that's something I've developed. Like that's not something that I was just like naturally born with, but like over time I've like recognized like, oh, this is what you have to do to be successful.
Did you have failures in the past that you look back on and you said, wow, it sucked, but it was really valuable to me?
Not really. I think the things that I think about, yeah, Yes, I mean, yes, I probably have. Nothing like major comes to mind where I like really put everything to it, but that's why I realized like I'm not failing enough because I'm not taking enough risks. So I need to be taking more risks so I'm in the point where I'm failing. Like if you apply it like romantically, like if you've never been rejected, like you're probably doing something wrong. You're not reaching like the best type of people that you could be getting with, right? Or that you could be going on dates with. So like kind of applying that to like career things or like other like passions, it's like if you're not failing, then you're not reaching your like ceiling. You haven't understood it yet. I think I've failed in different capacities, like starting a project and then it not happening, but like actually like launching something and going for it, like I haven't experienced that type of failure yet, and
But
maybe
you're not
I
scared
will.
of it, and that's
I'm
why
not scared
that's
of it.
great.
You can't be. I mean, especially if you didn't like if you're not in debt. Like I'm not in debt. I'm in debt like time wise, but I like learned, and it's supposed to be in a 4-year institution where I'm learning. So it's like it's fine. It's fine. It's like that's kind of, I guess that's a better way of like expressing my philosophy here. These 4 years I meant to learn, and if I'm not taking a financial burden from these learning, then there isn't really a failure. Like especially with stuff like this. So like keep going. I don't know. I should probably ask someone out that's out of my league and see what happens as well.
You're
Applying
in
that.
time debt.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm curious a bit more about like I feel like I don't know a lot about the way we like went into this podcast is like you just like approached me when I was talking about the game. So I'm wondering like what's your why behind this? What are you like what's your why behind this first, I guess I'll ask.
So the why behind this podcast, similar to what I told you early on in the conversation, was I am obsessed with podcasts. I listen to like at least 8 different ones whenever I'm doing something mindless or I'm walking to somewhere, driving. I'm always having a podcast on. I love that it's a medium where you can really get to know someone and also hear from top experts without being and having to know them. It's accessible for everyone. Whereas in an audiobook, it's more of like a lot of filtered stuff, more refined. But I don't want refined. I want like real, genuine conversation. So that's where I started to love podcasts. That's one. And then I remember when I was in freshman year or going to college in general, it was so hard for me to understand what the college landscape was. You have those YouTube videos of day in the lives, but those aren't ever really helpful. You don't get to see their social life. You only see the dining hall or the lectures or your professors, the homework or whatever than that, right? So what I found was I felt like there was a lack of college influencers to talk about their lives on a candid level, very realistic, nothing like what you'll see at like I don't know if you've seen these TikToks or reels of like, oh, here's my day in the life of like being a product manager at Google. And like the entire video of them is just doing yoga or eating food or walking around the campus. It's never about work, And that creates this horrible expectation for Google to make it seem like, oh yeah, I'm just paying these guys $200K a year to do nothing. It's unrealistic. So I wanted more realistic college conversations. So I'm kind of taking you through the progress right now. So when I wanted to see if there were any college podcasts about like, oh, who are these people that are building, all I saw were, oh, here's my 25-year-old that built this business out of his dorm in 6 days or something like that. Or the opposite of that spectrum would be, college students talk about pre-law versus health students, stereotypes, or hooking up in college. It was all this, I don't want to call it degenerate. Yeah. I think that's a very strong word that I wouldn't agree with. I think it's more of it's an audience for entertainment and humor. And I think it lacked a lot of like college students displaying the real shit that we go through. It's like all these, even the way I even did it for myself. It's like just the way I want to be able to capture my thoughts, like I feel like there's a lot of issues I have within every semester in college. It's like, shit, I only have 1.5 years left. What am I going to do? What about my internship? But I really love business. What are these guys doing who are also doing business, who doesn't care about school? This guy actually cares about school. What is his dreams? Like I need to know, I love hearing about all these perspectives that like I started having these conversations at these networking events or like these socials, and I'd just be sitting down with someone for 1 hour, 2 hours at a time. And it's like, so many of those conversations I wish I recorded because they were so impactful to me. One of the best lessons I heard from a senior I interviewed or I talked to, it wasn't recorded at all, but I came up to it with this problem. It's like, I'm super ambitious, you know, and in this today's world, I feel like I have to be specialized at something. You know, specialization will open up more opportunities for me to be a generalist. What do I do though? Because like this is all I have right now. I feel like I only have 2 more years left. I'm scared shitless. And he said, you know, nobody's got it really figured out. And yeah, I understand that you're ambitious. You want to get somewhere. What I can recommend is for the first 2 years of college, explore everything, do everything. You have all the time in the world. Like get out of the house, meet people, learn all the perspectives, try all the new things that you're interested in. From there, in junior year, you should find something that you enjoy and you love. Or, you know, maybe you don't enjoy as much, but you're good at it. You know, you'll figure out that you're good at it. Hone into that. Absolutely feed into developing that skill set for the next 2 years and you'll be fine. Yeah. Is kind of the advice he told me, and that's been sticking with me ever since. And part of that was part of what came out of that was after sophomore year, I was like, I think social media marketing, sales, that's where I reside. You know, I don't want to do this product marketing stuff. Hooray for all my friends who are really excelling and getting like these banking jobs and consulting. Huge props to them. I know if I was in their position, I would be miserable. Yeah. So that's why I started doing this podcast, started creating content on Instagram. It's like, it's what I love. I love yapping. I love talking. I love hearing I love also hearing like perspectives of other people. Like my unofficial motto is capturing personality through creative arts. But yeah, that was the start of the podcast. It's realizing that there wasn't really a way for me to get to know college students that were ambitious, who were doing cool stuff, but also not so out there that you wouldn't be able to contact them. Like I think if you were to contact anyone on my so far that I've interviewed, 70% of them will probably reply to you if you ask them for help. If I do that with other ones of like, oh, this millionaire, this kid made like 64 million, I don't think they would have given you the time of day. So that is what I love so much about my guests, but also like what I'm doing.
Yeah, and you could be creating a good network between them.
Exactly.
Or like all these people that are like excelling or like trying to excel, like can learn from each other.
And I think a lot of people would be frustrated by like probably my progression in terms of like audience viewership throughout these videos. But what I've found is like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in terms of like the people who've tested out the game. But I feel like my audience is really loyal. When I like stopped making videos, so many people checked up on me and said like, hey, what's going on? Like, are you going to upload? I really want to see the next episode. People would be commenting. People would be telling me how they connected and made a friend, or they got really close to one of my podcast guests or multiple of my podcast guests because I had that conversation. They were able to get to know them parasocially. Parasocial? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's the term. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not qualified.
I forgot. It was paras something.
Yeah, parasocial sounds right-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I like started to understand the benefits between a big audience versus a loyal audience.
Yep, that's huge. I think that's important as well. And that's something I'm trying to prioritize. You want people that are advocating for you and are like, I fucking love Magnus. Like, I love him. First, like, I like him. Like, you know, like they won't talk about you. They won't advocate. You won't learn from them as like having like a loyal relationship with them. So I think that's an important mindset.
What's that like dark motivational like BoJack Horseman like
I love
quote?
BoJack.
You know, okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like everybody likes me, but nobody loves me.
Yes, I know. What
and that's the
about.
loneliest feeling in the world.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with BoJack Horseman. It's on my Hinge. It's like says I geek out on BoJack Horseman. I advocate it to like everyone. Very like complicated. Like, despite it being anamorphic characters, like it is one of the best shows for displaying human emotion. It's fucking beautiful. Top 3 shows.
Fuck, maybe I should rewatch it. It's been a minute. I think that was like a COVID watch.
Yeah, it's good for dark time. It's good for dark times, for sure. It makes you live through the lens of that depressed horse. So, yeah.
It also gives you a way to laugh at it, right?
in a way. I just like to feel like any media I'm like consuming. I just like I want to feel something, whether that's like humor or like sadness. I mean, just that emotion is important.
Recently, I've been like growing up. Actually, I don't even know about growing up. Between high school, before in middle school, throughout elementary, I'd always be watching movies with family and everything. But as we like started to drift apart, not like significantly, but enough for like us to not really spend time to watch movies together, I stopped watching movies in my high school years. And I feel like I miss a lot of that cultural significance and being able to connect with people. And once I started watching movies again, once like I believe like since last year, I've been like trying to fit one movie in every 2 weeks. And I talked to someone who's a movie fanatic, and she just loves movies so much, and she kind of like motivated me to do it as well. But there's so many great lessons, also like ways of taking messages from films and like inspiration that it's like I think watching movies is so valuable in films. You know, I don't know if this was inspired by a film for you or a movie or if it was just pure conversation.
Some sort of media, I'm sure. I mean, there's got to be media that influences us in different ways. So I don't know if there's anything explicit, but I think you're right. I mean, your content diet is important, and the longer form content that you consume,
right,
the more creative and informed you're going to be.
So you work for Reboot.
Yeah, Project Reboot.
Project Reboot. And a lot of what you guys do is like helping students like stay off their phones. Yeah. Let's say, and it kind of is me, like I have a social media addiction. I can't stop scrolling. Every time I'm trying to avoid doing like my work, I'd just pick up my phone and start scrolling. How do I get out of that cycle? How do I break that?
Yeah, well, and it's not necessarily staying off your phones, but it's about building a more intentional relationship with technology. I think the first thing you need to acknowledge is like, be honest about your relationship with your phone. What are you avoiding when you're scrolling? Is it boredom? Is it sadness? Is it anxiety? What uncomfortable emotion are you avoiding that causes this like task to happen? Like when you really like reflect and like look back, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm bored, so I'm gonna scroll. Or like, I'm not really trying to sit in my thoughts right now, so I'm gonna scroll. So one, acknowledge your relationship. Two, rewire your device to a way that makes it less addictive. So like there's apps like ClearSpace that you can download, which like every time you open Instagram, you have to take a deep breath, and then it gives you a quote on like how valuable your time is.
I use that for so long.
Yeah, so you can grayscale your phone. There's good devices like Brick. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that are doing a good job in this space. You can set a time limit on Apple, but then give your friend the passcode so you can't override it. Be purposeful about it. These devices are made to manipulate you and take as much of your time as possible. So you have to rework them in a way that they will not manipulate you. And that's important because we're going up against a huge machine that is tracking. Like, I mean, these algorithms, like Instagram worked with Las Vegas in the gambling industry to replicate reels to like a slot machine. So like when they know what like reels are going to be satisfying for you, they purposely like put them out in like infrequent order. So like you never know when that next hit is going to be, but then when you get it, it's like a big rush of dopamine and it makes you want to have it more and more. It's like how slot machines work. So, I mean, yeah, I really think these companies are like the enemy in a lot of ways and need to be regulated. And I think it's important to like understand your relationship with tech, set in like guidelines and barriers that make them less addictive, and then like understand the system and how it's manipulating you.
That's crazy. So have you had any trouble with social media at all?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reason I'm passionate about it is because I'm an addict or a recovering addict as well. So yeah, I still have days where I doom scroll and it's bad and my screen time sucks. But overall, I'm trending in the right direction. And I'm having a more intentional like understanding in my mind of like, this is a waste of my time.
Got it. Well, I love that.
Yeah.
Shall we move into our closing tradition then?
Sure.
Actually, before that, I'd love to play a few of the cards, if you don't mind, like in the deck there, because I think I love the concept of it, and I feel like I want to play it.
Yep. Okay, if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh man, if I could give myself. Oh, I love this one. I don't know if you're a big like. Do you know Chris Williamson?
Mm-mm.
You don't know? Okay, he's podcast that's more about like self-development, more of like a red pill type of guy. Just talks about like how to be like a man basically. But one of the things I love, this like one clip that he has where it's like talking about doing the thing isn't doing the thing, researching about the thing isn't doing the thing, thinking about it isn't doing the thing, telling other people isn't doing the thing. The only thing that's doing the thing is to do the thing.
Yeah.
So for me, biggest advice I'd give to myself, do the thing.
Yeah, I like that. I honestly I would almost give myself that same answer. Yeah, I feel like I would tell my younger self, like, don't wait to do things when you don't know. Like, just go into it and like be okay with learning. And then also like give yourself some grace and like love yourself a bit more, like basic things, like acknowledge that you're like competent in like a lot of areas, and like even if you aren't, like don't attach your like accomplishments to your self-worth, like your material ones. Like you can attach your characteristics to it, but not like what you accomplish.
I completely forgot like what this was in the context of, but there was a guide to like either shutting down your ego or like feeling so much better about the world and not being like pessimistic. But there's some strategy where it's like give yourself almost too much self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
And like that's what I kind of got from what you just said right there. It's like there's so much power that we could give ourselves if we stop guiding life in a way of like we're pitting ourselves, and there's so much vengeance and so much hatred for ourselves to constantly go towards self-development. You know, self-development already assumes that there's something wrong with you, right? So that's why it's so fascinating to me about that, like how the brain works.
Yeah,
Every way. Yeah,
I agree.
We have a closing tradition on our podcast where the last guest asks the next guest a question without knowing who it is from.
Fire.
So the question that's been left for you is, from what you have learned so far within your life, what advice would you give to older generations?
Mentor more younger people. I would say, like, I've learned so much from mentorship. There's this guy, Scott Galloway, really like good podcaster. I know you listen to podcasts a lot. You should listen to him. Yeah. So he talks a lot about like the importance of like young men having older men in their lives, especially in like a mentorship capacity. And like, I would tell the older generation, like, please like reach out to younger people and like give them advice. Like we all need more role models, and like it's really important for you guys to like bestow your insights on us so we don't make the same mistakes and like we can be more efficient. But then also like care about climate change like way fucking more. I know that you might not be here to like see all of the effects, but it's like already happening, and like we needed to be doing things yesterday and we haven't done enough. So like maybe being more radical with that, like vote like for the interests of like the next generation and not your own. I don't think that really like applies to a lot of old people, but I think it applies to like richer ones, like those like really wealthy people, and then the rest are just like misguided and don't really know what's going on. But yeah, I don't know, care more about climate change and mentor younger people. That's what I would say.
And yeah, that's a beautiful response, because like you know, usually you think about like what do you say to the older generation, younger generations?
Yeah,
but
yeah, I like that question.
now it's like older generations, like how can you guys help? And yeah,
that'll be in the next Fuck the Small Talk.
I love it. So continuing on that, how can people get involved with the game? You said there's a Kickstarter and you're launching it.
I guess follow my Instagram at Dawson Kelly, Kelly. There's 3 L's in it. And then Instagram for the game is FTST game. Yeah, I guess just follow to stay updated. The Kickstarter will be linked there. The content will be there. Yeah, start taking your relationships into your own hands and continue to have like insightful, vulnerable conversations. I really enjoyed this podcast, and I admire your pursuit and intention behind like the questions you have prepared. I mean, I could tell you like thought a lot about this interaction, and I hope I could provide you with some insights, but I know you gave me some. So I'm really like grateful for this opportunity. I'm excited. I like talking to people like you. It's refreshing. It's cool to see that we have like a lot of thinkers and go-getters, and it's dope. I'm excited to see this like on the trending page in a few years. It'll take time, but if you adapt in the right ways, you'll be there.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Dawson. Like our conversation today, it showed me so much faith within like the younger demographic of like, or not even that much younger, like just a year below. But like, I love finding people such as yourself who cut through all the noise and just do the thing. Like the fact that you've reached it to this point and made a physical prototype, that's extremely admiring to me. And I hope that a lot of people are able to learn from kind of your resolve and your discipline to just power through any struggles. And I'm really excited to see where this card game takes you. I'm going to be following along and probably will try to be your first donator if I can.
Thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons that I hope people can take away from starting their ventures, but also finding and pursuing and being involved in projects that are meaningful to people. And your little note on digital detoxing and having a more meaningful relationship with technology is definitely something that is lacking a lot. So those tips, I'm sure, were very helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you so much once again,
Thank
Dawson.
you, man.
It's been an extreme pleasure, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah, bang. See you later, Magnus. That's fun.